Hello, welcome to RGN, the regular guy news, the least pretentious name in news. I am your anchor, I am your host, Dan Black, and here's what I think. Hello, welcome back to another edition of RGN, our second of the week. We are now introducing through the election and possibly beyond a 2-episode-a-week system. Our first episode of the week comes out on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. I know some of you night owls out there, especially in the COVID era where time is a flat circle. And also this episode will come out on Friday. And our second episode of the week will be focused more on hearing from you in our mailbag, which you can email us if you have any response to our episodes or something you want to get out there. Ask us a question, regularguynews@gmail.com. Now, for the new listeners of the show, this is a fairly new podcast. This is the least pretentious name in news. I'm in news. My name is Dan Black. I am a news addict, especially in election years. And I have so many questions when I watch this news, and I get so frustrated from the way that the media acts when they just assume we know everything. I got some basic questions, and I'm not a dumb guy, but I am a regular guy, and I look into the questions they don't answer. I'm looking between the lines, not in a conspiracy way, but in a way of like, what? Like that? What the fuck? Our last episode, is Trump really losing? Anyway, we have our correspondent out in the field, as always, the only RGN correspondent. Let me check in and see if Aaron is here. Aaron, do we have you on satellite?
Dan?
Aaron.
Dan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Aaron, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Dan. Thank you.
Great. Aaron Finnerty, we have her connected via satellite. Aaron,
Yes.
Where are you reporting from out in the field?
Dan, today I'm coming to you live from my apartment in Los Angeles, California, approximately 1 mile from your apartment.
That's where I figured you would be. That's where you've been every single episode so far.
Or am I?
Feel free. We'll leave it up to the imagination unless you're watching the videos on YouTube. By the way, if you listen to this podcast, I never had said this, but you could watch our Zoom video calls on Dan Black's YouTube page. I believe the Dan Black Attack YouTube page. Check that out. Okay, so Aaron, we're going to start off before we get into our what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to discuss me watching the Supreme Court confirmation hearings. I have some thoughts about watching that for a little bit. And I also have some thoughts about watching these 2 town halls last night, competing town halls of Trump and Biden on 2 separate channels. So a little counter programming, a little like wrestling, like the Monday Night Wars again. But Aaron, before we do, let's dive into the mailbag. Do we have anything in the mailbag people want to know? They want to get their questions answered from a true non-professional me.
Right. Well, we do. We reached our limit for the mailbag this episode. We have 2 items in the mailbag. Okay.
Yeah.
So this first item comes from listener Elizabeth M. in Texas.
All right, Elizabeth M.
Elizabeth writes, "Hi, RGN. This ties into our topic today. It's perfect. Out of all the pro wrestling things Trump has done over the course of his presidency, where do you rank trying to incite a Thursday night war with Joe Biden and failing? And also, thank you both for being voters, and thank you to Aaron for being a poll worker. Please also let your listeners know that there are virtual opportunities for people to volunteer for candidates up and down the ballot all over the country, and every opportunity to reach a voter to help them get to the polls is worth it. You can phone bank, text bank, my personal favorite, drop off literature at homes without having to speak to people, and more. Mobilize.us or Vote Save America are good places to start to learn what opportunities are near you." Now, Dan, Elizabeth is a listener who comes to us from Texas.
Right.
And I sent her a follow-up question because I recently heard someone on Jonathan Van Ness's Instagram Live talking about down ballot races in Texas and their importance and their implications.
Right.
So I checked in with Elizabeth and asked her how things are going. She said, great question. Not totally sure about the answer, but I can tell you that many groups here are organizing to make Texas at least be more of a purple state than a red one,
Right.
including Beto's group that she is a part of. And they're fighting against Texas Republicans who've been trying to suppress the vote in a myriad of ways. Harris County, where Houston is, and their Democratic county judge have made a ton of investment into making voting more accessible for people, including a day of 24-hour voting, drive-through options, and a way to track wait times at different early voting stations. So far, it's paying off with record turnout numbers compared to 2016.
Well, they're saying that there's some counties in Texas where there's only one drop-off box for
Right.
like millions of
So,
people.
yeah, and I guess that's why Harris County, where Houston is trying to combat that. And she finishes up by saying, for comparison, I live north of Houston in a much more conservative county, and they're scrambling to maybe add 2 more early voting sites after 3 days of strong turnout. They could have done this from day one, but they didn't, and it's biting them in the ass. So
Right.
it's an update from Texas from Elizabeth M.
Well, Texas is really interesting. It's still Biden will probably not win Texas, like just is what it is. But Texas is they're spending money in Texas for the first time, which is
Right.
really interesting, because if you're a Texan, you're not used to seeing any advertisements for political candidates.
Well, and something I learned listening to this woman, she's from an organization called Sister District that deals with these down ballot races. And she was saying that in Texas, it's especially critical because this year they have the chance to get a Democrat onto the body that it will determine voting districts for the next 10 years. So if they have Democrats have a seat at the table, they can combat this gerrymandering issue and redraw the voting districts in a way that's more fair and equitable for all voters. So that would have an impact on how voting turns out the rest of the state.
Right.
And that has an effect on other states and so.
Yeah, and this will tie into a bunch of stuff we talking today. Get into today, but I think her original question was like, how do I feel about
her original question
about
was
the Thursday night war, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is funny because I kind of already mentioned that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you talk about how Trump feels about it, the ratings came out and more people watched Biden.
Oops.
Like by over 1 million people or something, 1.5 million, I think, more people watched it, which is going to drive Trump nuts because he's so fixated on ratings.
It's going to drive him nuts, but he's also going to say that the ratings are fake, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Already. But the interesting thing about it is, and by the way, that's across 2 channels because CNBC, MSNBC, 3 channels, CNBC and NBC all showed the Trump debates, Trump town hall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so look, the interesting thing about I think again, it's another example of us all really losing, regardless of anything. Like it's ridiculous. Someone called it whiplash in the news, like channel whiplash, which I completely agree. Like it was crazy that we had to like choose which one we're watching. I mean, especially in this time where it's like we're more tribal than ever. Like you're gonna just watch the one you're gonna watch. So it was kind of like I was flipping back between both. I actually taped both, and I watched most of both of them. I definitely watched the Trump one, and we're going to talk about that today. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like speaks to the pettiness of Trump. I mean, really, what happened here was they said they were going to debate virtually because he had the coronavirus, and then he pulled out, and then Biden was like, fine, I'll just do a town hall on my own, whatever. And then he did this last minute. Like, it just speaks to, like, his how erratic he is and how desperate he's getting here. And it's, yeah, I think we all lost there. I think that was another example of how it is. So they're supposed to debate again next week in person together. But, ultimately, I don't know. The whole thing was insane. Yeah. So I think, how do I feel about it? I felt bad.
Well,
I
her
felt
question
like
was, of all the pro wrestling things Trump has done over the course of his presidency, where do you rank in citing a Thursday night war with Biden?
I rank this pretty low, actually. I think he's done way more stuff that equates to wrestling more. But you saw me before even hearing the question. I naturally compared it to the
Yes.
Monday Night Wars of wrestling. So yeah,
Hmm.
obviously happy. But I think the stuff that Trump does that's wrestling related, like the most wrestling shit that he does, is not confronting issues, but pointing out the absurdity of politics. So like the
Right.
best example to me is like when he'll be like points to someone's position on the stage. I've always said that, like where he goes, "You're on the end." Like, why are you even
Right.
here? You're rated. You're polling so low. Why are you even here? As opposed to acknowledging the fact that like he has no plan for blah 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 blah. Just
Right.
be like,
Right.
you're practically falling off the stage, acknowledging ratings. Like that's the most
Right.
wrestling thing about him because he's straight up saying to you, I only care about the ratings and not the substance of
Right.
what's happening here, which to some people is fun. To me, it's even fun. I'm entertained by Trump in a way, but now when we have an actual national crisis, it's like truly insane.
Right.
All right, what else we got in the mailbag? Thanks,
Okay.
Elizabeth.
So thank you,
We got
Elizabeth.
something else in the mailbag?
We do. We have one other thing in the mailbag, and it's more of a topic for discussion. So,
Yeah.
listener JP sent us a link a little while back to a video of Dwayne The Rock Johnson
Yeah.
endorsing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on Instagram. And many other celebrities have recently endorsed their candidate of choice. J Lo and Alex Rodriguez endorsed Joe and Kamala Harris today. So, where do we stand on
By the way,
celebrity
that was a
endorsements?
really pro wrestling thing that Trump did. By the way, is he called Kamala Harris Kamala,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
literally the name of a wrestler. And actually, fun thing about Kamala,
It's
Kamala, which
Kamala.
Kamala, which is the wrestler.
Kamala. Yeah,
Kamala was
and
a
then there's
wrestler.
Kamala the
His
wrestler.
last name in real life was Harris.
Mm.
So his name was
Mm.
also Kamala Harris. So it's Kamala Harris and Kamala Harris.
That's crazy. That's very
Yeah,
awesome.
spelled exactly the same, by the way. But yeah, so that's a really pro wrestling thing. Is he called Kamala Harris Kamala?
That's some like Fox News
Yeah, yeah,
tactics right
yeah, yeah,
there. Yeah. So where are we at on celebrity candidate endorsements on social media this election?
I think that they're way less effective than they used to be. I think the
Yeah.
value of Hollywood, and also this is part of the Trump rule book, even though he wishes a playbook, even though he wishes he was more Hollywood, he has that Vince McMahon chip on his shoulder of like not getting the mainstream attention that he wishes he
Right.
had.
Not
Um,
accepted.
yeah, 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 yeah. And which, by the way, it's like interesting because like I can't. This is like someone else's story that I can't reveal, but like,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll find a way to say this. But I think Trump's always tried to crack his way into Hollywood in a
Right.
way, and that's been always kind of unsuccessful. Meaning, like, yes, he gets ratings, like from he has big TV show, The Apprentice, and
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but he's always kind of I don't know, I
Fringe.
yeah, a little fringe in that way, and so like yeah, so he has taken down this celebrity endorsement in that way because he's like, oh, they're all phonies, and as we become more tribal, like if you're a conservative person, I think you see every Hollywood person as this like elite liberal privileged person, and there is some
Right.
reality to that. Like
Mm-hmm.
there is some reality to like the I live in LA, and some of these people are unbearable like with their behavior. Like they're so left wing, but they're also like disgusting Hollywood privileged people.
Right.
Like it just is
Yeah.
what it is.
Mm-hmm.
um and so there, that kind of like that kind of that that like contradiction has been fully implemented into society. So even if someone who is, the difference is that a lot of celebrities have privilege but are able to recognize it, acknowledge it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And maybe they don't change their behavior, but they still are like, well, I know it's wrong. And so does that make it better or not? I don't know. In a way, you could say that's worse. But the point is that all of that to say that the celebrity endorsement is not as powerful as it used to be, and it could be negative, but there are exceptions like someone like The Rock who is universally beloved and also is also someone who has said, "Oh, I voted for Republicans in the past." He
Right.
spoke at the RNC actually when in character in
Yeah.
like 2000, probably for Bush
Yeah.
one when he was WWE champion. So I think that's really powerful when people call that out, especially the other thing about the Rock's endorsement is like he also had coronavirus and has been affected by
Right.
that. So I
Right.
think that there's power in the real power in celebrities right now is people who have been driven to speak up, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I also think that when you have a celebrity who their fan base or the people who follow them are not, it's not all blue people or all red people. Like someone like Taylor Swift, for example, who recently endorsed Joe Biden. Like, I'm sure she has fans from all over the place, and a lot of people who probably aren't immediately voting for Biden or don't lean that way. But I think that if someone like Taylor Swift or like J Lo, who represents like the Latin American populace here, like
Right.
if they can at least get you to maybe be curious about what the other side is about and look into it and be like, oh, this person, someone I idolize, someone I look up to,
Yeah.
is
Someone
voting
you
this way,
idolize.
Yeah.
then maybe it's worth looking into. So I think it's powerful in that way.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it does help. Like I said, like uh Marissa Tomei randomly is the one who talked about having a voting plan, and I saw
Right.
that, and that triggered me to that day go online and look, and I noticed I actually didn't have mail-in box ballot checked.
Right.
I was registered, and I would have voted in person regardless. But like, there
Right.
is something that helps that. Also, they did that naked ballot thing where it was like, oh well, the concept of a naked ballot, where people are like, forget to put your vote in the envelope that goes
Envelope.
inside the envelope, you know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and you're like, well, that can make your vote not count. That's interesting. So that helps getting it out there. Any kind of exposure is valuable.
Yeah.
But I do think that more than ever, I think about when I was a kid, I think Hollywood voices mattered like more because I even find myself now when like celebrities get up there and they start talking politics like at an award show, my new vision is like, all right, like like even
Right.
me, and I mostly agree
Yeah.
with their message,
Mm-hmm.
especially when people are hurting. I think like now financially, and you see people all glammed up, I think
Yeah.
it's like there's a disconnect. So the country's just like, this isn't a hot topic or whatever. It feels we're so more divided than ever. But that being said, the number one most followed guy on Instagram endorses you. It's very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people I think are steering away from endorsing candidates, like my girl Kim Kardashian, for example.
Yeah.
Obviously, she's married to Kanye West, but they're their own people. She has worked with the Trump administration to release people for nonviolent crimes from prison, and I
Right.
think that's probably why. But she's been pretty vocal about, she's going to vote the way she thinks is right, and I
Is
don't
she
know.
endorsing Biden or not?
No, she's said that she's not endorsing any candidate, and I if I had to guess with my heart, I think she's probably voting for Biden
Yeah.
and isn't endorsing a candidate because she won't endorse Trump and then not vote for him. But she has also worked with Trump on
Hmm.
freeing people from prison. So
Yeah. It's going to be interesting
it's tricky.
because yeah, uh, yeah, it's valuable. The bottom line is
Yeah,
all marketing is valuable. It's been hurt. It's been diminished, totally. And now with
especially
social
now,
media
it's
and
all on
all this
social
like
media.
conspiracy campaigns and people, the
Right.
immediate objection to stuff and the
Mm-hmm.
spin of like the Fox News style spin people do on social media of like, hey, someone does something here and like here's their real motives. It's so easy to do.
Right.
Everything becomes everything has like a propaganda spin to it. So it's
Totally.
crazy. It's still valuable, but that's
Yeah.
kind of why actually that's a great question, and I'm glad to have it. And I think that
Thanks,
definitely
JP,
like
for sending it in.
brings me to my main topics for today, which is like truly like why I think this podcast has value, which is like there is this bullshit going on in everything that's happening. Everything has an element of being like a dog and pony show
Mm-hmm.
that is so frustrating to me as a voter, and it's both sides. Like it's the Democrats constantly. I'm like, what are you doing? And you're like, why can't any of you just say something real? You know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I will give credit. I watched a lot of Biden's. Biden said a lot of real stuff last night in that town hall. I'll give him a
Yeah.
lot of credit. Couple examples is like they kind of asked him like how you feel if you're gonna if you lose or whatever, and you know he was like he didn't do the thing like I'm not gonna lose, which is what Trump would say. He was like,
Right.
well then I was a lousy candidate. You know what I
I
mean?
didn't do a good job.
I didn't do the right job. It's like oh, that's like you know there. I it sucks we can't get any real speak, you know,
Right.
you know, up there. And so the main culprit I felt like was the of real speak this week that like really frustrated me was I was watching this Supreme Court justice hearing, and like
Mm-hmm.
let's just take a step back, okay?
Okay.
So Amy Coney Barrett, she's nominated to Supreme Court. Listen, she's 100% as conservative as it gets, you know,
Yeah.
as a judge. She she went to Notre Dame. The pastor from Notre Dame was there at her.
Mm-hmm.
He got coronavirus there at her initial announcement,
Right.
which
Right.
he was at that super spreader event. Um, you know, she's a religious person. She's in some kind of weird commune style, like it's called like the Church of the People or something, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
literally 5% of her
Society.
income goes to this thing. It's a percentage of her income goes to it.
Yeah.
Um, she so look, we know where she stands. She's had opinions in the past saying that she's called Roe v. Wade the barbaric legacy of Roe v. Wade,
Right.
right? So we know where she stands on this stuff. Okay, we know. And Trump has said he wouldn't put someone in the Supreme Court who didn't have these check boxes. She was on his list. He put together his list, so we
Right.
know what's going on. So this whole time they're asking her during the Senate hearing, which by the way, the Senate hearing is almost pointless to begin with, and not to mention like there's whole these stimulus bills not being passed. There's real work to be done on this coronavirus, and the Republicans are jamming through the Supreme Court justice. Now I know why they're doing it, and I'm not saying the Democrats wouldn't do it, but you have to take a step back as a voter and call bullshit when it's bullshit. And I don't need Amy Klobuchar and like all the Dems to tell me what this like the spade is spade. The regular guy news element of the situation is you could see clips of Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell saying, "Let the people decide with this election." 11 months before the election, when Obama tried to put through a Supreme Court justice, you see them
Mm-hmm.
say that. So they said it's precedent. Use this against me. It's why Lindsey Graham is being destroyed right now in terms of donations, but they still are putting this through. So then they ask her kind of every question about like what's your plans for Roe v. Wade. She's already basically confirmed, but she's like, oh, I can't say. So the whole thing was just a
Yes.
complete waste of time of our elected officials who should be working on the coronavirus right now. That's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's
For days.
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 So that's Republicans. Like, sorry, they're responsible right now. So if that does that bother you that they can't get a stimulus check through? It's all universally agreed that we need it. Even the president. I mean, by the way, he went back on every single issue, like up and down. All negotiations are off
Right.
until after the election, and then now you want something bigger than before. You know,
Right.
he says whatever because he's looking to gain, seeing how it affects polls. That's it. Um, But ultimately, like that, this is what's going on. So you're watching this thing. Okay, now here's some more bullshit with it. So you're watching it. She's not going to say any of her opinions, even though she knows that she's going through. But fine, we're just wasting our time to begin with. She has her kids behind her this whole hearing, and like that immediately made me question this woman's judgment. Like, why are your kids there? I don't
We're
know.
in a
I mean, she
pandemic.
seems
It's
like
a
a really
weekday.
smart
Like,
woman, but like her kids
yes,
are all there. It's a pandemic. They don't have like proper testing for everyone there. And I mean, they
right.
were wearing masks and stuff, but like to see your mom in her confirmation hearing, it's not her confirmation ceremony.
No, it's a hearing in front of Senate. Why would, if you were in court, would you bring your kids to like sit behind you?
Odd. That's
Odd.
that is odd
Not
to
even like
me.
a trial. Like, this is just a hearing. Like, it doesn't.
And no one brought that up either. I was going to be like, why are your kids here? And it's like, just to show me you adopted some
You
kids?
have kids that are different colors.
I was very, yeah, I was.
Look at
I
my
was
family values.
right. Also, but I think it was also like, I also saw it as like, I don't know, as like a bubble of, like, as a protection so they couldn't like ask her hard questions, like, because they're
Yes.
so like, because of the Kavanaugh hearing, you
Right.
know?
Right.
I didn't get that. Okay, here's the other thing. So here's the real, like, regular guy news thing.
Mm-hmm.
Of this thing where I'm like, what does this mean? So she calls herself a textualist, right?
Okay.
Meaning that you're supposed to interpret the text as written. That's the job of a judge. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So are we saying that everything in the Constitution that was written a fucking bajillion years ago is going to be applicable to our society now? Sorry, it's in the Constitution. Like,
Right.
like I'm saying, yes, we should use the Constitution to guide ourselves, but like even RGB said, like, if the Constitution there, she said almost, I believe she said that there's a better that some countries have better constitutions now
Right.
based on ours, right? And so like you could have a amendments and whatnot, but like a textualist sounds like you're using old text, which is what you do in your life also, by be like when you're
Right.
like a
Right.
religious person,
Yeah. Yeah.
to apply to modern day society. What does
And
this mean,
just
really?
going
As a
by, but like, and also, isn't it the Supreme Court's job to like use their judgment to like determine these things? Like, there are all these justices, and it's your job to use your judgment to make a call on something, like not just be like the text says this. Like, the Supreme Court can then set a precedent that goes throughout the land, but like if you're just like, this is what the book says, this is what the good book says, then what's the point? Why are
yeah,
you
and
being
also
hired for
like
this job?
you can't recognize that like you also are going to interpret text however like in accordance with your biases, and maybe it's not with your bias, but it's your bias of interpretation. Be like how
Right.
you feel a word, like if a word is like how you hear it, the word pronounced in your head, and the
Right.
inflection of like, oh, it feels like this. So you're like, why can't you just do like what makes fucking sense? Like
Right. And
Roe
make
v.
a right
Wade,
decision.
I don't personally like Roe v. Wade. Okay, let's use it for example because it's like the most controversial thing. Okay, are we gonna fucking sit around in modern day society while the earth is dying, and we're gonna all these people are sitting around literally and saying, we're gonna say, is abortion constitutional? Like this is what we're doing. This is our elected officials, as opposed to being like, does it make modern sense to ban abortions? Do we have the plan in place? Seems like our health care is a fucking mess. Okay, let's just apply this to my life today. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay? I squatted 335 pounds for 3 this morning. The heaviest
That's
I've ever done.
RGN exclusive.
Right? Yeah, lock that in. So, I'm healthy dude. I have
Mm-hmm.
this is like Chris Cuomo. By the grace of God, I have
Mm-hmm.
health insurance. Okay, I
By
went
the
to go
grace
get a
of
flu
God.
shot today.
Oh,
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I went to get it because everyone's to get a flu shot because it's Corona and COVID season, and I'm trying to listen to the scientists. So I'm like, go into Rite Aid. I'm like, can I get a flu shot? I have insurance. They're like, yeah, but like, okay, here's the thing. Like, you have to pay for the flu shot here. Your insurance only covers the flu shot at your general practitioner. So I'm like, okay, so I'm here right now trying to not spread a deadly disease, okay?
Right.
The flu. I'm trying to not, I'm not
Right.
trying to, so I'm here to try to do my part in
Mm-hmm.
an N95 mask, risking myself. And you're telling me, oh, this or this. You're like, okay, so we have no point. So I'm just saying, then I had to pay for it, and then I got to find out if it's reimbursable, but like, whatever. It was, okay, it was $40. Some people
Uh-huh.
don't have $40 to get a flu
Right.
shot,
Yeah.
okay? So I'm sure there are places you can get it free, but that takes the internet to look that up, and right? And we're talking about we have a national health crisis. So okay, so we can't even get these flu shots in order. We don't even have a national plan to ensure everyone can get a flu shot if they want it.
Mm-hmm.
That I know of. Do you know of a unified one?
No. Because if
Okay,
there was a unified one, it would have been applicable today when you went to go get a flu shot, right?
right. Like okay, so like coronavirus. Okay, so coronavirus testing in LA. I got coronavirus tested like last week or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's run by Core, which is Sean Penn's company. They
Mm-hmm.
take your insurance. If your insurance covers it, they'll go through your insurance to get the money because it's funded privately. Okay, in Los Angeles, this is funded by not the government. Now, the government probably gives it money, but it's a private organization that
Mm-hmm.
runs it. And Sean Penn raised over $150 million. Okay, I've said this. Those guys, it's free if you don't have insurance, but if you have it, they'll take it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, but that's only done by a Hollywood liberal person. And right, so if you think about this, you're like, oh, it's private industry. No. Sean Penn's actually doing that because he is a good he's a good Samaritan, right? Like
Right.
he's someone who actually is like trying to help people. He's made a conscious decision, whether you like Hollywood or not, where he's like, I'm gonna dedicate a lot of my life to charity.
Mm-hmm.
Great. That takes a certain individual. You don't have to be a Hollywood person. It happens a lot in Hollywood because people in Hollywood recognize that first off, they a lot of times suffer for a lot of years. And then
Mm-hmm.
when they hit it big, they have a lot of guilt because you will
Right.
have a lot of friends who are not successful, and you will feel either guilt for being successful or you will feel truly lucky. And that is like a version, a non spiritual way of feeling blessed, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
so that tends to be a trait of Hollywood people. Like I know for me, if I ever booked like a show like Big Bang Theory and all of a sudden I have $100 million,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know some of my friends who have the equal ability that I do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I believe myself, I'm probably gonna be a big charitable guy because I'm gonna be
Yeah.
like, like I'm gonna feel so happy and grateful, and then also
Right.
I'll have some guilt. Okay, all this is a reason to say Roe v. Wade. I don't give a fuck what the text says. I don't give if you're a textualist, that means you're a fucking moron to me. That means
Right.
you are someone, right? That just means you're someone who is not willing to bring pure, just sensical logic to your work, which is Roe v. Wade. Fine, abortion's bad. Let's agree. What's the plan? Do we have proper adoption channels for every single kid that's been aborted? Let's see this math.
Right.
This is the only math I need to hear. How many kids were aborted last year, and how many money and how many people are looking to adopt?
Right.
Do we have and if it's more kids, I'm just going. If it's is it more? If it's more kids than there are willful adopters currently, right? Do we have a plan to pay people to adopt kids? I don't even know, but I'm saying,
It
have I
sounds
heard this?
unheard of. No, it sounds like I've never even considered or heard anything like this before.
Because
Radical.
right now people are like, okay, and then what happens to a woman who for 10 months might not be able to work, has no health care, but is the guy's gone, which by the
Right.
way, this happened in my family. My mother is adopted, okay?
Mm-hmm.
From a teenage pregnancy, okay? So I wouldn't even exist, okay?
Right.
it wouldn't even exist. Who takes care of that woman if there's no man around that's let him down? So do we have a plan for that? So, like, I don't want you to be a fucking textualist. I don't want any of these people to be like, I read the text. And this will get to my next point. I want someone who's like, hey, I think we shouldn't be aborting kids because the kid we might be killing some of our best assets. Fine, okay? I'll go with you there. What is your plan to take care of the what's the plan for modern day society that we look at where there's homeless people sleeping on my front porch basically, and you have a plan for all this? I just don't know what it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's the same for the pre-existing conditions issue. It's like, yeah, you want to get rid of it, but there is no plan. You want to get rid of abortions, but like, what is the backup plan for when it happens? Like,
so that's what I'm saying is I'm watching the fucking news.
Level,
do we talk about this in the debate, Aaron?
No.
Has this been mentioned in the debate? Like,
no.
Right? This is the only thing that matters. The only thing that matters is like, and then so you have fucking grown people getting up there being, I'm a textualist. What does this mean to me?
Right.
What I'm hearing is that you're a religious nut. That's all I'm hearing.
And you're not willing to admit it. And like, on a state level, I think those things are addressed, right? Because we talked about a few weeks ago, states already have laws on a book that are essentially a fail-safe for if Roe v. Wade is repealed, they will either immediately ban abortion or they'll be like, hey, come here and get your abortions. So it would fall to the states in that case because the federal government, there is no...
So, yeah, like, even let's have a conversation, like, which is like, okay, fine. We want to have more abstinence programs, which are proven they don't work. Like you've never been a kid before. You've never been a horny kid.
Probably makes you want to fuck more.
Yeah. So, okay. And by the way, I'll say, so I mean, God, I'll tell you a quick story. Okay. But I don't know why this is so focused on Roe v. Wade, but I'm just like, this woman's Amy Coney Barrett. I just want to tell you, she seems lovely and smart. Like, I watched the whole thing. She's clearly a smart woman, clearly a pleasant, nice person, right? She clearly is smart. She's clearly hardworking. She has a lot of admirable traits. No question.
Knows the law very well, clearly.
Passionate about her work, her family. Lovely person. I'm talking about for whatever millions, I don't even know how many Americans there are, but probably 500 million, let's guess. I don't know. Let's a guess. That's probably about right, though. I don't know. I literally don't know. RGM, maybe. But like, how does this apply to everyone? I understand. And I even admire that, like, for you believe in, like, having 7 kids, adopting 2. This is lovely. But what are we talking about for modern day society? Let's see the cost. And let's see the action. Like, how can we do this? How can we implement this in our schools? How can we can't take care of the people we already have. So someone who's pregnant and can't take care of themselves and everyone is, I just don't know what we're even talking about.
I know.
So now we're talking about religion. Well, there's separation of church and state, which is your job. Your job is to separate church and state, but that seems to be gone. And I want to go to my best example of this, which is the thing that drove me the most nuts was watching Ted Cruz.
Oof.
This guy. I could not believe what I was watching this guy. I mean, Jesus. I cannot believe how this guy is a fucking senator in America.
No.
Not only that, almost a presidential, pretty close to being the presidential candidate, like for the Republican Party. I mean, I know I would choose. By the way, I understand why Trump gets chosen on the right side. He's the only logical one over there, to be honest. He actually lives on planet Earth, to be honest. Like, he's nuts, but he's not, like, in space like this guy.
Right.
This guy said, I wish I wrote down the exact quote, but he's up there being like, they're talking about coronavirus and blah, 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 and he's like, I believe that the biggest issue we're facing in this next presidency is religious freedom. What are you talking about? There's a virus killing people.
8 million cases, okay? And religious freedom is our biggest issue?
Then he starts talking about and he starts talking about the 10 Commandments in front of a courthouse that that the ACLU wanted to remove or whatever, and then they got the votes to remove it. And he's like, and then he's talking about a cross statue that they had to cover up, and you're like, look at this, can you believe this? And you're like, first off, I actually almost agree with him in a way where I'm like, yeah, just leave it up. Who cares? Like, you know what I mean? It's not a Confederate statue. A Confederate statue is like is an actual symbol of a civil war, But like, whatever, man. Like, can we just have a real conversation, which is like, as long as in the actual courthouse, everyone knows that statue outside is just like a fucking showpiece. You know what I mean?
Right.
If we have separation of church and state in there, then ACLU, like, stop giving them fodder for like these statues, because they get all these talking points out of it. Like, I don't care about statues. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what are we talking? These are our elected officials. These people are paid money. These people are in charge of a lot of elements of your life, and they're in charge of your tax dollars. And they're talking about like, they're talking about statues in front of courthouses.
Dare they take down this statue? It's a war. But this is like a Supreme Court hearing. This is so much bigger than, like, I mean, that's just Ted Cruz using this as a platform to be like, hey, look at what's at stake here, people. You know what I mean? But it has nothing to do with this, like,
Aaron,
appointment at all.
But my question to you is, like, a guy like Ted Cruz, like, look, all politicians are like full of shit and blah blah blah. But like, do you think this guy really believes? Or, like, is this just arguments they have? Like, does he really believe that, like, a big issue is a 10 Commandments in front of a courthouse? We're talking about this, like, other more pressing shit is going on.
100%, and this is like it's worth listening to, because after you texted me that you were watching it, I sought out clips, and it's worth listening to because you can really hear, like, how disingenuous Cruz sounds when he talks. Like, he's just up there, like, he's showboating. This is the same guy who publicly liked porn clips on his Twitter page, like, for all to see, and didn't even realize it. Like, you're not this, like, super pious religious.
Oh, okay. So he's a full on. Okay, so he's a full on phony.
He's a full on phony, and then he went on to do you speak any foreign languages? Do you play the piano? Do your kids play any instruments? Like, what the fuck are we even talking about?
I know that.
What is this? This is like the Ted Cruz show.
The piano thing was crazy.
It was insane.
So
what about music? Do you play any musical instruments? Like, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, God, this is happening. This woman's going through it, and I'm almost at this point. I don't know if this is good or bad, but like, I'm at this point where I'm like, look, I cannot relate to these people at all anymore. Like, I can relate to some of the people I've spoken on this podcast. I spoke to an undecided voter. I spoke to a Trump voter. Those people I connect with. Those are people almost that we agree with a lot of stuff. But there's these guys in Congress. These politicians are so. I'm like, hey. I'm almost willing to be like, hey, I'll give you a couple of these states. They could just be yours, and fine. Right. You guys want to start, you want to start dismantling all these, because I know, like, California, never in a million years is California gonna overturn Roe v. Wade, right? Like, when it goes to a state level. And I said, my thing is this: look, we're not gonna break up the United States. I don't know what happens, but it's going to become more. If you want to make things more states, that's fine. Here's what I want. I want to know where tax dollars go. If we're going to keep this electoral college, right, that, like, where your vote matters more than mine,
Right.
I want to know where all the tax dollars goes, and that's it. Because I want literally California. I'll keep living in California and New York. That's where my family is, and we'll keep doing it. We'll keep living on planet Earth where we are. Yeah. And it just is what it is.
Yeah, totally.
It won't matter because the Earth is dying whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's like, what's going to happen is abortions will happen whether you like it or not. There'll be rich
They
people will
have
be
since
getting
the
them.
dawn of abortions.
I grew up
They used to have it in basements. Like,
I grew up in a fairly wealthy area. Actually, where I grew up is a very wealthy area, but I was the poor kid. Um, but I knew girls who got abortions, and those girls would have gotten they'll get those people in that class will continue to get abortions.
yes, of
And
course.
illegally and whatnot, and it's just
I
like
have to say, like, as a woman, like, if I were a teen or a younger person or single or, like, I don't know, the victim of a crime, and I was faced with, like, having a baby and carrying it and not wanting it, I would find a way. Like, it's going to happen.
right. And also, like, it's like, why I don't understand, like, if you why can't you just be pro-life for yourself and your community?
I know. Why do you
um
want it for everyone else? Like,
but anyway,
I,
I guess I get it, because you feel like it's so wrong. But then what are you doing to help people who are making this really tough choice for themselves?
and it's also like, well, if that's your religious belief and it's based on your specific religion that not everyone is, why do you have the same expectations of, like, the Jews or
Yeah.
non-Christian people? Like, I don't get
Here,
that.
maybe I should talk to some pro-life people.
Can you find one? I don't know.
I
You
don't
have
know.
to dig
My
deep.
mother is adopted, and is pro-choice.
And it's imagine that.
My mom,
Imagine that.
I wouldn't even exist, you know.
Yeah.
And I like to listen to my mother, who has experienced giving birth and adopted. You know,
Right.
I think it's not my experience to know. I don't know what that is like. I don't deal with women's health issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this whole Supreme Court. So listen, Amy Klobuchar did this thing where she made this metaphor about following the tracks or whatever,
Right.
and she was like, "Well, I can look at enough of your writing," because Amy Coney Barrett didn't think it was appropriate for her to answer any questions and know what you're gonna do. So look, she's gonna get in there. So she's gonna be confirmed. So it is what it is, you know.
Right.
Then they talk about, like, court packing, which is this, like, big issue and whatnot. And I'm like, the thing with the court packing is, like, I would be against court packing because it starts being dangerous if
Mm-hmm.
the Republicans didn't show me that if they had some sort of integrity. Like,
Right.
when you see clips of, like, Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell being like, this is precedent. In an election year, we do not confirm a Supreme Court justice. You can mark my words. This is how I feel. Like, when you see that, and you're like, well, then if you're the Democrats, then you're playing an unfair game against these people. So you should maybe pack the courts, even though I don't like that. I don't like that that's a precedent, because I know, like, it'll swing the other way, and then we'll have a
Right.
bajillion Supreme Court nominees. You know, but, like,
Yeah.
can we all, like, play the game here? Like, why is the Republican Party fucking the rated R superstar? Like, why are they?
Right.
Why
Totally.
are they like a cheating professional wrestler, like an ultimate opportunist? And then, you know,
Mhm.
and not that the Democrats are, like, good or anything, but they're clearly playing the game. You know, they're playing the game a little bit more like it's meant to be played,
Right.
or they're just losing the game. I don't know. I feel like I should run for office.
Yeah. Why
My
not?
whole platform would be, I'd be like, I'm the regular guy candidate.
Listen,
I'm just gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you like it is. You know.
you got to start small. But I'm telling you, like, if you move to, like, northern Michigan, like some
Yeah.
liberal ass town in northern Michigan, like, I have a friend whose brother, just
Yeah.
a real estate agent, decided to run for office, and just went for it.
You think
So
I
you
could
never
rise
know.
up the ranks?
I think you could.
You think
I
I could
really
be
do.
Do you think I could be prez?
Well, are you over 35 now?
Yes.
Okay. Why not? I'll be your running mate.
The amount, these all RGN episodes come back to haunt my political
No,
aspirations.
well, RGN should be the least of your worries.
Well, yeah, 'cause yeah. Well, I would get up there and they'd be like, Dan made this, and they'd be like, and he said it was a comedy, but what do you think? And I'm like, listen, this is why I'm here. I failed at being a comedian, so I mean,
Here I am.
it clearly wasn't funny, and that's why I'm a serious man now. As I
Listen,
say,
by the time we're, like, old,
yeah.
Every presidential candidate will have had a podcast. It'll be fine.
But I mean, I would. Well, I think it was the first time I would never apologize for anything I said. I made mistakes. That's it.
I made mistakes.
What do you want to do? You
want
to talk about this?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
well, okay. So you're pro-life. What's the plan? Where are they going?
Right.
What do they do? What's your plan?
Here's my plan, and then you have a little physical plan written.
Oh, man.
It's gonna be like the black.
What do I run for first, though?
Well, I think you just go city council to start. Then you just move your way up. Mayor, Senate.
City council?
Yeah, city council.
How much money do I need to run for city council?
Don't know. Maybe like a couple $100,000. Less.
Can I do it for free?
You could try.
Maybe I run for city council.
I know, but there is no free because like you need signs, you need campaign workers, like buttons and shit.
Oh yeah.
Merch.
Yeah. I mean, I would love it. I would love to be like an elected official. I feel like I could represent. I could represent the people. You know.
Well, Mike has a dream of being the mayor of my hometown in Michigan. Which we know is Commerce Township.
Yes.
Or Walled Lake. And I mean, I support the goal. I think it's possible. I
want to be the mayor.
My hometown slogan is Walled Lake. It's everybody's town. So I don't see why a guy like you or Mike couldn't be mayor.
That's it. I'm moving to Michigan. All right.
Yeah. We should all probably move to Michigan.
I want to play a couple clips that I took from last night's town hall debates.
Wow. Can't wait.
They're all of Trump. And the reason they're all of Trump is because he's the current president. Okay? And we're in the middle of a pandemic.
And quite frankly, Biden's responses were so thorough and informative and based in reality that we don't have enough airtime to really give them their due.
Well, and like, you know, people might have problems with Biden's plans and whatnot, but I feel like what Trump is doing is like the full embodiment of what I hate about what frustrates me so much with these town halls. It's like, why is no one saying like, "Hey, that didn't answer my question"? Do they like why can't you?
A rule against it
is that you have to answer. Is the rule you have to ask a question to the candidate and then you're not allowed to talk back when they don't answer you?
I don't know what the Trump campaign's rules are for this, but during the Biden town hall, like Stephanopoulos was a few times like, "Did they answer your question?" And then they would cut back and like they'd be like, "Yes," or "I guess so," and then that's why Biden had so many opportunities to say like, "Find me after the show, let's talk."
So these pretty much all relate to the pandemic because that's what I'm the most interested in, and I feel like it's a single issue election for me. So like here, this is Trump on wearing a mask. Okay.
Oh,
here we go.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
The exacerbation of coronavirus due to Americans who are not wearing masks or participating in social distancing. After contracting COVID-19 yourself, has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I had, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago. But look, you have, on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this. No. They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then you have other people that disagree.
Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
he's
that
not
he
an
disagrees
infectious
with
disease
you.
expert.
Oh, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
But I don't get it because you have so much power and influence as president. You could go to you could require it at your rallies, and you could say, everyone put on a mask right now. And the University of Washington says you would save lives.
University of Washington, then you have other places say different things. things. You have a lot of, hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
Well, I don't know. Then he changed his mind. But then you have a report coming out 2 days ago that 85% of the people wearing masks.
I looked at that report. It's not about mask wearing. It was neutral on the question of masks.
We're on the same side. I say wear the mask. I'm fine with it. I have no problem. We're on the same side.
Let's take a break. We're going to get more questions.
Okay, so that's his answer to wearing a mask. Like, it's the least presidential thing I've ever heard. Like, some people wear masks and some don't. That's the plan. Like, what is your take a stand? Like, there's a lack of guts with Trump that drives me fucking nuts. Where he's like, oh, here's what I'll do. I'll try to like appease everybody and take no responsibility for anything. So it's like, if you want to wear a mask, you're happy with me because I said you can wear a mask, and if you don't wear a mask. It's like that's like cowardly. So people say he's tough. It's not tough. And also, like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't even care if you think we shouldn't wear masks. But this response, fine, you say we shouldn't wear masks? Well, then say, I think you shouldn't wear masks, and here's why. So in the Biden, the mask is, like, big. They're saying it's, like, his number one issue. Like, now, but Trump has just gave this to him. Is like, he's saying, yeah, wear a mask. So if I hear Biden, he's going to say something that bores the fuck out of me about why we should wear the masks, and an old story about, his father telling him this and that, and some kind of anecdote about that. But that's fine. But this thing of just going that way, how could you vote for this guy? And these people stand there and they don't respond. They don't go like, hey, what you're saying is and they let Savannah Guthrie does it, and he's going to yell at her, call her fake news. What about the person standing there asking the question?
The more than likely undecided voter who asks you the question. And it's not tough. It's just loud. Like, he will yell and answer at you, but he's so scared of losing voters at this point. That's why he's so afraid to condemn QAnon, afraid to condemn the people who don't wear masks. And it also makes him look weak to those people who believe in him so strongly, these anti-maskers and all this stuff. Like, it's bullshit.
Right. So you're weak. Like, okay, so how is that like that? I don't understand how anyone listening to this right now could be like, that's a good answer about wearing masks. Even if you're anti-mask, why would you, oh, they're touching their face. Like, this is the stupidest shit I ever heard in my life.
Well,
and then Fauci said don't wear a mask right in the beginning of the pandemic before there was no evidence. He's like, oh, I'm not sure. And it was specifically because they were trying to keep PPE for the hospitals. They're like, let's not have everybody buy all PPE. And then they're, oh, wow, the evidence started showing that it was effectively stopping the spread, and it was more aerosolized than they realized. And then they said wear a mask, and we've all been in agreement on that for the past 8 months.
It should be a non-issue at this point. And I really don't.
It's like smoking. It's like we didn't know smoking was bad for us. It's like, hey, but remember when you used to smoke? It's
Doctors
I didn't smoke before I didn't know. So how is this remotely? This is I don't know how this is not deal breaker shit for people. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let's hear him talk about. We talked about this before.
Oh, and also just wanted to say the fact that he said about 85% of people who wear masks get sick was completely misquoted, which Savannah Guthrie pointed out. And I read the fact checking on it, and he was it's like, if you're going to take facts and try to spin them, at least use something that works to your benefit and isn't just wrong. And you can read online the next day, like, this is actually what that says, and it's the opposite.
Well, that's smart. That's actually kind of smart of him. You just have to be a complete piece of shit, because people don't fact check. They don't do it. So what he says is that 85% of people wear the mask. 85% of the infections are people who wear masks. But what they're saying is that the masks are effective, but people are taking them off too much.
Right.
And so people are taking them off at restaurants specifically. They're wearing them to go to the bar and then taking them off. And that's why. He said
85% of people who wear masks get sick, but the whole point of wearing the mask is so you don't get other people sick. 85% of people who wear masks get sick. How would you even quantify that?
Right, and not to mention, it's like he's being this populist, which is like, you guys can't see. If you can't see through this, you're a fucking moron. Of I want to appease everybody, so I'm gonna say wear it if you want, don't. It's a personal preference. It's a color of T-shirt. It's like wear sleeves or don't. And you're like, if it makes you feel comfortable, wear it. But he's undermining the effectiveness of it. The point of it is that if the whole herd wears it, then it cuts down transmission of 50%. There's a 50. So why wouldn't we do it to protect other Americans?
Right.
It makes no sense.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Here was a question about there's Bob Woodward tapes that came out with him saying that what he knew. Okay.
Bob Woodward in February was airborne and deadlier than the flu. Why did you only put in place a travel ban from China and not put in place other measures mitigating the spread of COVID-19, potentially saving tens of thousands of American lives?
Well, I did put it in very early, as you know. Joe Biden was 2 months behind me, and he called me xenophobic and racist and everything else because I put it in. And it turned out that I was 100% right. I also put it on Europe very early because I saw there was a lot of infection in Europe. And it's sort of an amazing question, and I appreciate the question and respect the question, but the news doesn't get out the right answer because I put on a travel ban far earlier than Dr. Fauci thought it was necessary, who I like, far earlier than the scientists. I was actually the only one that wanted to put it on, and I did it actually against the advice of a lot of people, including Nancy Pelosi, who had no clue what she was doing, and Biden. When I put on the travel ban, I put it on in January, the end of January. When I put on the travel ban, Joe Biden and others said, this is ridiculous. You don't do that. Well, Dr. Fauci said I saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Did you?
I was early. I was extremely early when I put on the travel ban.
Can I ask you, did your national security advisor on January 28th in the Oval Office warn you that this would be the greatest national security risk of your administration? No, he didn't say, or you don't remember?
I read it someplace. Maybe Woodward said it or something. But no, he did not say that. But I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say, everybody's going to die. Everybody's
Isn't there a middle ground? You don't have to mislead, but you can...
No, there's not a middle ground. You have to be safe, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be smart.
You're going to like this next couple of voters.
Okay, so, all right. Let's just think about this timeline for a second, okay? And my regular life. So he knew in January, okay, that this was aerosolized and more deadly than the flu, okay? So flu is something that we all get shots for every year, that we're all warned about. And then we didn't shut down until mid-March.
March 13th.
And he didn't answer one question about what he did except for close down travel from China after it's already in the country. No contact tracing, no testing plan, which we still don't have. Didn't ramp up PPE. We know we had literally doctors in garbage bags.
Also, travel from Europe
didn't
was
make more
still,
ventilators until way later.
I believe travel from Europe was still permissible.
Yeah, it wasn't about getting people panicked. It was about the stock market. He just ignored it.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm just saying, like, what that was a complete. If you walked away, wouldn't you, if you're this person getting this question, be like, what did you do besides this travel ban, which didn't stop it from coming? It was already, you knew it was already in the country. So you did the stop. So all you did was just travel ban. But what about all the other elements of this, which is like, and what about the pandemic unit that he dismantled, which is never talked about? You know?
And every time he talks about it, it came up in the debates. Pence said it wasn't true, even though it is fact. Like, I don't understand.
Right. So I don't get that. And then, yeah. So yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Here. All right. So this is my last thing. It's on healthcare.
Okay.
To a large extent, because as you know, the individual mandate is gone. That was the worst part.
You've repealed, but you haven't replaced. Now, you've been in office almost 4 years.
What we have done.
You had both houses of Congress, Senate and House, in Republican hands, and there is not a replacement yet.
That's right. I'm sorry, but if you look, we had both houses, and what did we do? We got rid of the individual mandate.
But
that went through the legislature.
Was repeal and replace.
Look. We should be on the same side. I want it very simple. I'm going to put it very simple. We would like to terminate it, and we would like to replace it with something that's much less expensive and much better. We will always protect people with pre-existing conditions.
But if you're successful in court in November, those pre-existing conditions, that promise will be gone.
If we don't succeed, we are running the remnants of whatever's left because we took it apart. We are running the remnants of whatever is left much better than the previous administration, which ran it very badly. But we'd like to have new health care, much better and much less expensive.
Let me get to question.
Okay, so like, he's been in office for 3.5 years with no plan. Like, fine. I'm completely fine with, like, Obamacare sucks. Fine. I got it.
Mhm.
But he's saying, oh, I got rid of the individual mandate. So really what he's saying is that he fixed Obamacare, but he's still trying to take it apart, and then he's going to run the pieces of it that he can't dismantle. Like, he literally just told you, I'm dismantling it, but I'm going to put in a new plan, but there is no plan. So since Obamacare was so complicated, wouldn't you need to start this plan already before you dismantle?
Right. Well, that's what Guthrie was trying to say. Like, the whole promise was repeal and replace. That was your slogan, but there is no replacement. It's just repeal.
Right. And so these are town hall questions. These people are not allowed to push back on him, so he's allowed to just spew this garbage with, I guess, just Savannah Guthrie pushing against him. Like, you know, I'm just saying, look, regular guy news style. In between the lines here, I'm not hearing any plans.
No.
That's all I'm saying. These are three things. Even mask wearing. There's no plan for mask wearing.
No.
So his plan is vaccine or herd immunity, which means he's fine with you guys with herd immunity, which is millions of people have to die for that to happen. It has to be like something like at least 60% of the population has to be infected. We're at under 10%. So, you know, think about how many people have died already. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of more deaths. So it's basically saying we're going to kill 1 million Americans to have a complete inaction. Wear a mask if you want, wear it if you don't, even though it doesn't work unless we all wear the masks. We have complete open borders between states, and air travel is still happening. And as time goes by, people are going to get looser and looser. We saw a story about a wedding that turned out to tracked it to killing 7 people, you know? So, yeah, no plans at all to contact trace. The only plan we have so far is to share ventilators that we made with the world and to talk about a travel ban from 8 months ago.
Right.
Like, no plan going forward. So I'm just like, what? Why wouldn't we just vote for Joe Biden just to get someone who's going to have an actual plan?
Right. And hopefully, like, expedite the process of getting back to living a normal life outside of this pandemic. Like, it's already here and it's happening, but like this Trump's method here is getting us nowhere. There's no progress.
Yeah, so what Trump did, if we're going to get into the bullshit of this, and if we were just regular old pundits on a TV show, we would talk about, like, yeah, he was calmer, he was a little nicer than he normally was, except sometimes he was biting at Savannah Guthrie, like towards the 25% like finished mark around there. Like I think it was an hour, so like 20 minutes in or something. He was like, he was getting a little frustrated with her, but he was pretty nice and to the voters, and he was definitely his best spirits I'd seen. You know what I mean? And I think that was also him trying to show like he's not sick and because he had the coronavirus. But so I think it's in that political way. I think that there was some elements of it being like effective, and he had a couple of like decent lines here and there. But like when you read between the lines, and it's a bummer that people, not these moderators who they let him just say this.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, that was it. We know we're getting with Joe Biden. You know what Joe Biden is.
Right.
Can't
make it clear enough, folks.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to play a couple clips of what I heard and talk about how, like, you know, I don't know how this can dupe anybody. This guy has no plan. His plan is to continue to ignore the virus because it didn't kill him and his family.
Right.
Terrible. So anyway, we'll see another debate next week, and I think after maybe next week's debate, I'll check back in with the Trump voter and the undecided voter, see where they're at as we get closer to this election. But everybody, make sure to vote. Aaron, how do people vote?
Oh, well, you can vote at iwillvote.com. You can find all the resources there on your local laws, registration, polling places, and all that stuff. iwillvote.com. And
Sounds
if you're
good.
interested in joining me as a poll worker, there's still time. Check out powerthepolls.org.
Yeah, and make sure to rank this podcast 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Vote
Tell one friend about it. Tell one friend about the show if you dig it. And everybody, thank you for this first stop. Ooh. Hey. thank you for stopping by the RGN podcast. Everybody, thank you. And everybody, remember to always stay regular.